that simple layout works, like 80% of the time. Like if you go on Amazon or Etsy, you can definitely find what ones are doing well, which ones are selling, and kind of pick out those clues on design. Like you can test these things before actually spending any money on it. I like to do my research in the wild and go to the mall, go to Target and Walmart. And
You see the world in t-shirts,
I do.
basically.
I
You
do.
walk around every souvenir shop. Juna is one of the best t-shirt designers on YouTube. He's been a long-time print-on-demand seller with a lot of experience, and I had to have him back on this podcast to talk just about design. I wanted to get as much of his wisdom, of his expertise out of his mind and put it on the screen for you to learn from, whether you're new to this business or you've been doing it for a while and you just want to level up your skills a little bit. Juna is the man to listen to. So in this video, we talk about a bunch of different topics, including AI within t-shirt design, different tools that Juna uses and recommends, common beginner mistakes, but we also go into a lot of different t-shirt design principles, including composition, fonts, colors, and the psychological aspect. Do you think customers care if the design is made with AI or with like traditional design tools like Photoshop, Canva, that kind of thing?
No, I think, well, in a sense, they care if the AI is bad, right? Like if you can tell it's AI and there's 6 fingers and it's all messed up, then yes, they would care. But if the AI does such a good job that you can't tell that it's AI, or that it's so good that like it's funny or something, I don't think the customer cares that AI made it or like a human made it, right? Like I think the thing that people want is a nice t-shirt design that relates to them and that they want to buy. So regardless on who makes it and how it gets made, I don't think that matters too much.
Yeah, totally. I think most people wouldn't even know, was this made with AI? Was it made with Photoshop? Like, people can't really tell as long as it looks good and it doesn't look wonky.
Yeah. And there's some things that you can tell, like you showed this before, like there's a trend where there's a cat doing a selfie with UFOs behind. That's obviously AI, right? But it's so funny and it relates to the customer that they don't care. Like, yeah, I want to buy this. This is great. Right. So,
yeah, they don't care if it's a real photo and they know it's not. Right. So, so at the moment, then, because I know your process changes with time, but at the moment, what does it look like? Could you walk us through like your typical design process from concept to finished design?
Yeah, it really depends on if I'm using AI or not. So I'm going to go, if I don't use AI, I'm creating, I kind of do research first. Research is the start, whether I use AI or not, actually. Doing research to see like what's trending, what are people buying for this specific niche or topic. And then I come up with ideas. So I have a bunch of ideas that I want to play around with. And then it usually starts with a graphic, but sometimes it starts with a cool phrase. And then I look for a graphic for that phrase or draw a graphic for that phrase or create a graphic with AI for that phrase. And then I try and put it all together. So if I have the good phrase first, I kind of find a graphic that matches for it, put the graphic down in Affinity Designer or whatever app I'm using. I'm usually using Affinity Designer, and then I try and fill the space with the text. So depending how long the phrase is or how short the phrase is, can I wrap it around or can I make it in a fun way on the graphic, and then make sure that the colors match. I try to make it usually on both dark design, black t-shirt or white and a white design. I like to have both on Amazon is where I put most of my designs. If I'm just doing it on TeePublic or Redbubble, then I'm just doing the dark design because it just feels weird for them. I don't know. I feel like they don't want both. They want just the one.
Okay.
But on Amazon, I do both. And then that's it. I kind of make sure that I put the keywords in the title and the description and all of those things, make sure that they're relevant keywords to the design, make sure that there's a topic in there. If there's a phrase on the shirt, I make sure that that's in the title as well. Sometimes I put a distressed texture on it if it's vintage or something, but a lot of times I don't. But yeah, I'm just trying to I try to make sure that it fits that right t-shirt space, the tall rectangle. Make sure that it works for, the topic that I'm going for. So that's kind of what I do.
Sounds like there's a lot of exploring in there as well,
Yeah.
trying to lay out the phrase and get
The
it
layout.
right. Like, do you sometimes go through multiple
Yes,
versions
a lot of
or
times.
sequence?
A lot of times, because then I put it together. I mean, you have the words and you have the graphic, but they have to kind of work together. And a lot of times it's not straightforward. Like a lot of times I do put the text on the top and the text on the bottom and graphic in the middle, and most of the time that works great. But a lot of times the graphic can be fluid or move. Like it's not just something in the middle that you can put in. So you kind of have to play around with the text, and you want to make it flow and work and make it easy to read. And sometimes the right font's the thing. Sometimes if you use a different font, it flows better. So yeah, it takes a lot of massaging, I guess.
Yeah. I think that comes with the creative process in almost every area, right? You don't you start a certain way, but you rarely end the way that you've started. You have to kind of explore and test out things.
Yeah.
And you'll create a lot of rubbish in the process sometimes.
Correct.
Where you think like, what did I do? What did I do here?
Yeah.
But you've just transitioned a lot from doing your design with Detour with AI last year. You've just transitioned into doing it more like hand drawing stuff.
Traditional.
Right?
Yeah.
How's that felt for you, that transition?
It feels good. It feels like I'm going back to my roots where I started with illustration and before this whole AI, and even before computers. I've designed t-shirts for that long. Like I've done t-shirt design even before computers, or trying to hand draw my text and everything on paper. So it feels fun to do that. It's not that I'm abandoning AI. I'm still doing AI too, with ideogram and the batches and stuff. I'm just not showing that on my channel. But yeah, I'm purposely trying to get back to drawing every day and trying to improve that skill. I have Procreate on my iPad that I haven't touched because I've been using things like Kiddo and Affinity Designer and other things like that. But I want to get back into drawing and getting better, because I think that's one way that your brand can stand out, is that I drew this, I did this, this is mine, and that you can really, say that this is a Juna original, or this is my original that I did. So,
yeah, that's a good point, actually. I've never thought about that much, but it'll probably become a big trend, like made by humans, designed by humans, more so now because AI is taking over a lot of things. And people probably like gravitate towards that as like a selling point, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about different design principles, because you're a very design-minded person. You've been doing this for ages.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be great to talk about this, starting with composition. So what are some key principles for composition when designing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I like to say start with the tall rectangle if you've never designed before. That's the 4500 by 5400. It just really works. Squares work, circles work as well. But I think that little taller rectangle is kind of the shape you're going for. I like to fill in the space. Make sure that when you use text, though, that it's easy to read. I think that's one that most people forget. They just throw in a text in there, maybe a script text that's really thin and hard to read. And, like, why aren't people buying my shirt? They can't read it. And then I like to fill in the space. So like if there's the graphic in the middle and it takes up most of the space, I like to kind of fill around it with the words or other graphics and kind of fill in that space. I think another thing that I like to do is kind of use the contrast of big and small and colors and things. It's kind of, so if you have a dark t-shirt, then the contrast of having white on there like really pops your the letters or the font out. I like to do contrast of sizes too. So if you have a big image, I like to put in little things around it to kind of balance it out. So I think that's good. Some of the basic things that I do is fill that space, use the right fonts that match the topic that I'm going for. I'll kind of have a flow around it and make sure that it's readable and kind of have some interest in there. Yeah.
Sounds like you're using a bit of hierarchy there as well, right? Different size elements.
Correct.
Do you ever focus on that, like which word should be the biggest, which element?
Yeah.
Graphic?
Yeah, usually you can tell like in a sentence what's the key word, and so that word usually is the bigger word if I'm trying to do bigger and smaller words.
Like the
Um,
punchline
the
or the
yeah, the
yeah.
punchline. Sometimes though it's the word that's the shortest, so it has to be bigger. But most of the time it's the punchline thing
Mm,
that you want people to see right away, like, oh, this is the thing, yeah, that it's
mm.
about.
Are there certain layouts that perform best for you or for other people? I know you've been doing a lot of research into layouts recently. Have you seen any trends there or?
So I've been looking back at mine, and usually the simple ones work the best. So don't overthink it. T-shirt designs, most of the time, simple. If you look on Amazon, they're all really basic layouts. Um, and the one that works, I look at mine, and the ones that work best for me, text on top, graphic in the middle, text on the bottom. Usually that simple layout works, like 80% of the time for something, depending on your phrase. And if your phrase is a little longer, maybe it's 2 lines on top, the graphic in the middle, and
Mm.
text on the bottom. But yeah, trying to separate the graphic with the text, kind of that sandwich method really works. So.
Yeah, that's a good name for it. Sandwich
Yeah.
sandwich layout. Yeah, it definitely does. That's definitely one that's popular for me as well.
Yeah.
As long as you stick with some of those core principles, right, of having
Correct.
it easy to read, having contrast in there,
Yep.
and hierarchy. Yeah, but you've kind of made a series, haven't you, of showing
Yes.
different layouts. There's so many different ways to lay out t-shirts.
Yes.
You don't really
Yeah.
think about it
And
sometimes.
the reason I did that is because a lot of people come to me, in the group Facebook group, or just email me and like, my t-shirts aren't selling. What am I doing wrong? And a lot of times I go to their site and they have like a word up here and a graphic here, and then like it's all spread out and doesn't even look like a t-shirt design. I'm like, okay, let me show you what a t-shirt design looks like. So I like took pictures of t-shirt designs and tried to break it down really simply, and like, here's where the text goes, here's where the graphic goes, here's where the text goes again. And then it became a thing like, I wonder if I can do this with all the designs on Amazon. So I did a whole series. I did 25, and then I'm now working on 25 more, just so that, like, new people who are new to it, or people who are like bored with the same style that they're doing over and over again, can kind of look and see like, oh, maybe I'll try this layout. This is a new fun one. So it's fun.
No, that's really useful,
Yeah.
especially the simplified templates that you make with
Uh-huh.
like image, text,
Yeah.
image. Because yeah, sometimes the basic sandwich layout it
Yeah.
doesn't always work right.
Doesn't
Maybe you have a
always work.
longer phrase. Maybe you need to add more graphics than there's space
Yeah.
for, something like that. So having those layouts for inspiration and to
Yeah.
get new ideas, like maybe you have a split in the middle and you have graphic on one side,
Correct.
text on the
Yeah.
other. That's like
That's a good
a
one.
rare one you don't really think of too often, but it
Yeah.
can do really well, right? There's a lot
Correct.
of big sellers with that kind of layout. So yeah, definitely anyone who struggles with laying out t-shirt designs, composition, that series is good for inspiration and
Yeah,
to
it's free
keep
on
your
my
design tidy.
downloads. Yeah,
It's free.
if you go to my website downloads page, it's 25 layouts with examples now. So I didn't have examples before. People were asking me, this is cool, but can you put examples with it? I can't visualize it. I'm like, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. That's really good. So check that out. The link to Juna's site will be in the description, of course.
nice.
Lots of free downloads. You've probably got the most free downloads of any
Really?
like POD YouTuber
Nice.
probably. Cost me money. So let's talk a bit about typography next.
Okay.
The first question I've got for you there is, what's important to consider when choosing fonts
Oh,
for your t-shirts?
I wrote this down. Let me check it out. I wrote so many things down I can't find it. But the thing that I think, the font needs to be readable. We talked about that. Because it has to be easy to read. If you can, make it match the topic, right? So if you're doing some athletic design, maybe a slab serif might work. Or if you're doing something more for women, maybe a more elegant, thicker script font would work.
Yeah, not the very
so-
thin ones.
Yeah, not the very. It still needs to be able to read, right? You need to be able to read. So there's certain font that matches with the topics, is what I'm saying. Other things is like, I think you need to find a font that will match your words. Sometimes your words are longer, and so you're going to need maybe a condensed font to make it fit in that tall square space. Sometimes your words are shorter, so maybe you need a wider font for that. And so play around with that. And then find fonts that work. Like some fonts are cool, but then some letters don't work out well. So I noticed that when I spell something with an L, and sometimes they draw the L this way, and sometimes it's like a funky thing and you can't really read. So just because some of the letters are nice doesn't mean it's always going to work for every single word. So to be aware of that. So yeah, I think those are some good tips for fonts.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point there. With like some of the letters don't necessarily look as good, and you notice that as well when you're looking for new fonts. The thumbnails or the way they're advertising it, that always looks amazing, right? But then maybe it doesn't include some of the letters that look a bit ugly. And also there is a bit of a pitfall if you're trying to match your niche, I think, and you're trying to find a font that's very suitable to your niche, that sometimes the fonts kind of get too decorated and too fancy, and then it might look cool in the mock-up image on this site, but it might be really tough to read. Or simplicity I think is key. Like as long as it's good to read, easy to read, that's one of the main factors here as well.
Absolutely.
Do you have any tips for combining different fonts? Because that often happens.
I like putting opposites together. So I like putting like a sans serif with a serif, or a sans serif with a cursive, or a slab serif with a cursive. So a lot of times I do like or a wide font with a thin font, like trying to do the play on the opposites of each other. I think that kind of works. Just having that contrast, that interest, really works. A lot of times I use like a sans serif with a script, though. I notice. So.
Do you have any favorites there, or any recommendations that you always go back to? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So Yellow Design Studio makes some of the best fonts out there, in my opinion. I love Veneer, still use it. I see it out in the wild as well. And they have a script font called Thirsty Rough. So Veneer by itself has a distressed texture on it, and Thirsty Rough has a distressed texture on it, and they work well together. They're made by the same studio, so no wonder. But I like that. I usually do like a sans serif with like a script as well, so like a Helvetica bold condense or impact or something like that, with a Montana typeface. That's kind of a script font that I like too. It doesn't have that distressed texture on it. I also like Valken for my that has the rounded edges. I think there's another one called Anja, something like that, that I use for my kawaii, and I like to add that with a script font too. So Thirsty Soft, so same one like Thirsty Rough, but Thirsty Soft doesn't have the distressed edges, so they have like rounded edges and nice and filled in. That script font also works with like a slab serif, like Superstar M54. So those are some that I like to pair together.
That's a lot of good suggestions, and those are all by Yellow.
No, not all of them are by Yellow. Veneer and Thirsty are, but some of the other ones I mentioned are other fonts that I found along the way. So usually on my fonts has some good selection.
Yeah, they seem like very, very vetted, like professional fonts for sure. Do you think if someone's starting out, they can get around, using these expensive, more professional fonts and just start out with like some free stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I know Creative Fabrica does free fonts dumps all the time. In fact, I put that on my ex Twitter posts all the time when they're like, here's some new fonts. I'm like, here, go get these free ones. These are nice. Like, not all of them are great, but they give you like, I don't know, 20 of them for free, and then you can go in and like one or two of them are usually really good. So collect fonts.
Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion. They do definitely have a large font library.
And if you sign up for Kittl, you get all the fonts for free, something like that. Yeah. So
and they have Helvetica and a lot of those.
They have all the good ones, and they make their own. They're a font foundry too. They started off that way. I forget what they were called. But
Vintage Type, I think.
Something like that, and that's why their fonts and their text effects are like super strong, probably the strongest in any design app currently. It's because that's where they started, is the fonts and text effects. So
Yes, if you're into type, if you always find yourself looking through fonts,
Yeah.
Kindle is a good option.
Yeah,
For sure.
might as well. If you're gonna spend $20 a month just buying new fonts, why
Yeah,
not just use Kindle? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. What about colors in design?
Uh,
How do you go about selecting those for a
yeah,
t-shirt?
I try not to overthink it. I try to keep to 2 to 3 colors. Unless I'm doing some kind of vintage sunset thing, then I try to make sure that all of those work. I go to like a font, like a color palette thing online sometimes and try and see.
Hmm.
But sometimes I have my go-to. I have some go-to color palettes that I like for vintage sunsets. But beyond those vintage sunsets, I usually take the colors from the graphic that I get. So depending on the graphic, if I get it from AI, if I draw it myself or something, then I pull the colors from that and try and use that. But like I said before, I usually use contrasts. So if I'm making a dark t-shirt, I typically go with white text or a very light text. And if I'm doing a dark t-shirt, I do the opposite, either black text, dark gray or something. And then I try to find colors that match the topic. So if it's something like Valentine's Day, then of course I'm using red and pink and things like that. Or if it's St. Patrick's Day, I'm using green or light green and things like that. So I try not to overthink the colors. I think that's going to be a tough thing to do is try to have the colors all work together. And so if you're using more than 2 to 3 colors, I think it's either pick the colors from the graphic itself or use some kind of color palette maker so that you get the right colors working together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Right. If there seems to be a pattern through most of these, which is true because I think a lot of people starting out with design, they want to overcomplicate it.
Yeah. Doesn't work out.
To kind of show off their skills or show the different tools they might have learned within a design software, but oftentimes less is more in t-shirt design as well. Are there any like common mistakes in regards to color that you see beginners make?
Yeah. I think first of all, not all colors will print right on a t-shirt. So make sure you know the difference between RGB and CMYK. So the RGB color palette is a lot bigger than the CMY color palette and can be a lot brighter at some points. And some of those really bright greens and blues on RGB aren't going to print well on a t-shirt because they're printing it with CMYK. I know you're saving it in RGB mode with transparent PNG, but you can still bring the colors within the CMYK color gamut. So that's one. Like you said earlier, don't overthink it. Like you don't need to put a rainbow of colors unless your design has a rainbow in it or some vintage sunset, but you usually don't need that many colors. If you look through and look at t-shirt designs and do your research, you're going to find that most t-shirt designs don't have that many colors unless that's part of the topic that they're going for, but most of the time they don't. And just know kind of what colors work well and opposites of each other. I think that can really help. So, like a blue and orange work well together and things like that. So, just play with it and have fun. I would say keep some of your colors that work well for you. Maybe keep that in a folder so that you don't forget about them. Yeah.
No, that's a good tip. And that's also something I've noticed now that I've made like a lot of downloads for my page. It's like I'll just go back to those constantly and color pick. But what about one thing that just came to mind is like stroke on text.
Yes.
That's something I see sometimes.
Yes.
What's your opinion on that?
That's really hard to do. I think that's a little more advanced. That sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So if you put a stroke on your text and it makes it hard to read, then no, don't do that. If you're making a stroke on there just to make it a little wider, maybe it stands out. You're gonna have to play with it, and it all comes down to does it make it better? Does it make it easier to read? Does it help the design stand out? And if it doesn't, I wouldn't say just put a stroke on your text just to put a stroke on your text because you saw somebody else do it. It just needs to work within the design.
I think it's an easy one to get wrong. Like it can definitely work, but especially if you're starting out, you might have the urge to do it because it seems like it makes the text easier to read in a sense. But I think it often or quickly kind of looks like an amateurish design. Yeah,
and not all fonts work with that. Like there's some fonts that work with the outline, and some fonts you put an outline on and it's like, whoa, that made it worse. That made it a lot worse. So.
Yeah, that's definitely right. Let's talk a bit about the psychological aspect of design then.
Sure.
So what role does humor, nostalgia, or relatability play in t-shirt design, in your opinion?
Everything. Like that's why people buy the t-shirt. They're buying the t-shirt because that's their favorite team, or that's because that's they find this funny, or maybe they're a dog mom and they like dogs, or it has to be relatable to the audience that's buying it. It's not just about having a nice photo or nice design on your t-shirt. Like, the reason people buy a t-shirt and actually wear the t-shirt is because it's something they want to show off to other people around them, right? Like, this is the game that I like, or this is the movie that I like. And of course you can't do, you need, those things are copyright, but you could do some more generic stuff. Like, I love coffee, I'm going to wear this thing. I love baseball, and my son's in baseball, I'm going to wear this, right? So it needs to relate to the person buying it, and think about the type of person too. So if you're creating a design for dog moms, then it should be a design that dog moms would want to wear. So like that comes with certain styles and colors and fonts and things that all has to relate to the person that you're trying to get to buy your t-shirt that you're designing for. So
I think to us that seems obvious now, but I do sometimes see people that create designs and wonder, how does that resonate with the target audience? It's just not really funny, or it doesn't really make sense. It's like a random cross niche, maybe. It doesn't make much sense. So how can people that are new to this, or maybe that don't know American culture well, how can they kind of help ensure that the design emotionally resonates with the target audience?
I think it all comes down to research. Like, I would say start with what you know. If you're going to branch out beyond what you know and think is funny, because you can design for yourself, and if you would wear that t-shirt, then that could help if you're a fan of that thing. If you're not, then it would take a lot of research, right? Like, go in and find, like, let's say you don't know anything about outdoor culture, like you never go hiking or whatever, then I would go and search for outdoor stuff and kind of look for clues on what you see is popular on some of these. Like, is there a silhouette on here? Are they using mountains? What kind of fonts are they using? Are they using script fonts or sans serif fonts or slab fonts? Are they putting a distress texture on these designs? So you can kind of get clues on what's popular, on what's selling. You can go on, like, if you go on Amazon or Etsy, you can definitely find what ones are doing well, which ones are selling, and kind of pick out those clues on design, at least, of what people are gravitating towards, and then kind of take notes, and like, okay, these top ones all have this design element, these top ones all have this design element, and kind of put those together.
Look for patterns, right?
Patterns, yeah.
Similarities, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
And sometimes it can be as simple as watching a quick YouTube video or reading an article about what is this topic, right? I remember when I started out, I wanted to sell pickleball t-shirts because I saw them doing well, but I didn't have a clue what it is because it doesn't really exist much over here.
That makes sense.
So I just watched some YouTube videos of people playing it to kind of familiarize myself with it. And I think that's important because the American culture is quite different to some of the ones right here in Europe. And if you're trying to sell on Amazon and the USA is one of the biggest markets, then it does help understanding the niches that you enter rather than just blindly trying to come or ask AI for an idea and just run with it.
Yeah.
Like, it might be okay, but sometimes it might not make any sense, even if AI suggested it.
Yeah, and you can test it out. The beautiful thing about print on demand is that you don't have to print 100 t-shirts, send it out there, and see if people are going to buy it. You can actually make a fake mock-up, make your design, send it on social media, ask people, if this does well, if you have a group or family or whatever, send it out in an email. Like, you can test these things before actually spending any money on it, and it doesn't even cost you anything to upload some of these things to your products. So that's the thing I love about print on demand. It's a business where you can test things for free, and figure out if it works or not. So
yeah, you don't have to actually print a shirt and get it in real life in order to see if it
test
might
it.
work.
Test it in social media. Like, go ask your friends. Like, sometimes things are just funny for me. Like, oh, this is so funny. Do you think this is funny? And they're like, I don't get it. Like, then that probably won't sell, right? So do the test with other people and see if this resonates with a group or people. So.
Or ask in Juna's community.
Yes.
Ask someone there, share it in the group.
Yeah.
Ask in my community.
Yeah.
You quickly get some feedback or direction.
Absolutely.
Are you doing it right, or are you perhaps missing something here?
Yeah. Every Friday I have a Friday feedback on my Amazon group, and you can just leave all your designs on there, and you'll get answers from me and other people in the group on why they think or what you can do better, or if it's good. Like, yes, I love this. So.
That's awesome. I'll have a link to that in the description as well.
Nice.
That's on Facebook, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
Facebook group. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Are there any design trends that you've noticed?
Yeah, there's a lot. We talked about some together, but one of the ones that I noticed coming up is like this old-timey vintage illustration, one color kind of t-shirt with some funny, sassy puns on there. So usually animals on there. The other one that's still trending are bows, like the coquette. I'm still seeing that.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's see, I wrote down some more here. Black and white AI photos. We talked about this earlier with the cat and everything. I've seen the photo booth ones and just these AI black and white photos that look like real photos, but obviously they're AI because they're of animals with hats or whatever, sunglasses.
Photos of strange events, maybe.
Of strange events. So things that you wouldn't see in real life, but they look realistic. And this 90s, I don't know what you call it. You've seen this with the 90s collage, kind of multiple pictures all together, but then they have this like chrome effect of the text on the top and the bottom, like this vintage 90s style. Sure. Gradient chrome kind of text. I don't know what that style is called, but it's kind of like the throwback to the 90s where that was really popular. So I'm seeing that a lot with sports as well as with they kind of combined it with you remember the wolves howling at the moon, the 3 wolf moon thing? Yeah. So now they have that kind of style, but with text, like that chrome 90s text above and below it. So whatever that style is, I've seen that a lot.
It's funny. It's a lot of like old school stuff coming back.
Yeah.
But also, again, some of them are very simple. I mean, the one you just described isn't really simple.
No, that's one of the harder ones.
The one color thing it's literally just one color, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about that before, and sometimes it's as simple as just having a design that's green or white. Or like a
white t-shirt, blue text and blue or red, whatever. It can be gray. And you'll see it on Etsy a lot if you just do funny t-shirt designs. You'll see like this vintage it looks like it's hand-drawn. I would guess that either AI does it or whatever, because you can get that kind of vintage illustration style of like a raccoon wearing a cowboy hat or a frog or some kind of animal doing something. And then some funny punny phrase. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that has been really popular. Do you have any favorite design tools at the moment?
Yes. So I usually use Affinity Designer. That's my go-to. I started in Illustrator and transitioned to Affinity Designer. I love doing things in vector because then I can draw it and kind of control the stroke and everything like that, and have a bunch of fonts that I love using. Kittle is great. I love using Kittle for like that one that we just talked about. If I do a vintage illustration, one color with like ChatGPT or something, then I can take it into Kittle and it'll vectorize it pretty well, like the one color vectorize. And love their text, their fonts, their text effects. I use it for that as well. Just really good overall. I did use a lot of ChatGPT last year. I still do with the Sticker Whiz. Love that. And then I'm starting to use Ideogram with the batch uploads, just trying to see if can I get more sales if I upload 200 AI designs in a month or something like that. So I've been doing that. Let's see, what else did I get? I want to get better at Procreate this year. So I'm trying to use Procreate a lot more for my drawing and getting better at that and just using my own drawings in my t-shirt design. So yeah.
You said you started out with Illustrator, but then you moved to Affinity. What kind of drew you away then from Illustrator? Because I still use that today. Yeah,
so I used to use Illustrator back in the day, way before they had Creative Commons and they started the subscription thing. So I would buy, so this would this was me back in the day. I would buy an Illustrator pack, like Illustrator 5 or was it 6? It was a long time ago. And you get the DVD or the CD, and you put it in, you upload it, and then I wouldn't buy another Illustrator until it updated like 3 versions later, right? So I would only pay like the 200 one-time fee, and then wait till that Illustrator was kind of outdated and do it over and over again. And then they brought in the subscription thing, and I was a poor starving artist or whatever you want to call it. And I was trying to save money. I'm like, I can't spend $20 every month for Illustrator. I need something that I can just buy once and not pay for it. And that was Affinity Designer. So you at the time I bought it for $50. It was very similar to Illustrator. I didn't have to pay for it again. And so I'm like, I'm happy. It works. I have my vector stuff. I could bring in my Illustrator things that I did earlier, and it all worked together. And so I just stuck with it. Now that I can afford $20 a month, but I'm like, I'm so invested in it. Affinity Designer now. I'm just sticking with it. So
would you say it's easier than Illustrator? Because I find like Illustrator for beginners, the layout is like a bit.
I haven't used Illustrator in a long time. I have done a couple of videos. I tried to get back into it, but Illustrators, I feel like, is very bloated. Like there's a lot of stuff on there now than there was before. And, of course they want to add new things, new bells and whistles and stuff. So I think it's a little simpler. Affinity Designer, at least it's very similar though. Like a lot of the shortcuts and a lot of the things that Illustrator has, the pen tool and the move tool and all that stuff works pretty much the same. So I think it is easier in the fact that there's not as many things that it can do. The one thing that I wished it did, and it does now, but back in the day I wish it had more of the text effects. Illustrator had the bulge and the arc and that stuff. And so Affinity Designer put some of that in now. So I'm really happy with that.
It sounds though like you're definitely using a combination of AI tools and traditional tools, right?
Yes, depending on the design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, depending on what you want to create. Mm-hmm. Do you think that someone who's kind of against AI or doesn't want to learn about it, that they can still succeed at POD?
Absolutely.
They can still just stick to Affinity or just stick to...
Yeah, you can start with Canva if you don't have anything. And the nice thing is there are free options out there now. Like I was trying to save and only have a one-time fee. Now there's no fees to get started. You can go Canva for free, start their pro with, I think, 30-day trial for free. There's things like Inkscape and Photopea, which are free. Inkscape's more like Illustrator, Photopea's more like Photoshop, and they're absolutely free. They're online. Inkscape you have to download and put on your computer, but like you can learn it. There's tutorials online if you don't want to pay anything and get started. Like you said, do I need to use AI? I don't think you do. I think if you go on there and you look at some of the top sellers, you can still do all those things without AI. You can build a lot of those designs. Maybe not the cat with the UFO behind it without AI, but there's a lot of other, like that's not the only thing that sells, right? And if you go, I like to do my research in the wild and go to the mall, go to Target and Walmart and things like that. Even go online and look at t-shirt designs, like what's selling right now. And a lot of times there's simple graphic things that either you could draw or you could find with Creative Fabrica or Canva, and just put text with it, and it looks very similar to some of the top sellers out there. So yeah, you don't need AI right now. You need AI if you want to do AI stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that's not AI.
It sounds like it's a little bit related to my next question as well, what you said there about sources of inspiration for you.
Yeah.
You said you go to Target. Do you find stuff there that you wouldn't necessarily find on like Amazon, Redbubble?
They're very similar, but I like doing Target just because I like to see what the Target people are thinking are the things that are going to sell, right? So they're doing their research on there, and then a lot of times there's some new styles out there like, oh, I didn't think about this, I'm going to try this style. And so I like to take pictures. My phone's full of pictures every time we go to Target. On, oh, this is a nice t-shirt, that's a nice t-shirt, that's a nice t-shirt. You know what else is really cool? If you're going to the airport, there's always usually some kind of shop with the place there. So if you're like going to Texas, there's all these Texas t-shirts, or if you're in Florida and so on. I'm sure that it's the same all over the world. There's little shops in the airport that sell t-shirts. So I like to snap t-shirts there and just try and look like I like trying to figure out how they put it all together. Like, oh, they use this thing here and they put this here, and like, so that's fun for me, trying to break it down and then put it back together. You know what I mean? So.
You see the world in t-shirts,
basically.
I do. You walk around every souvenir shop, you can find Juna.
That's right. I'm in there just snapping photos, poop, poop. Like more than half of my photos on my phone are t-shirts. So.
Wow, that's crazy. Juna's store is just filling up just with the t-shirt inspiration.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a nice note to end it on. That was a really good sort of in-depth discussion, I think, about some principles of t-shirt design, what people need to look out for.
Cool.
And you're the man to do it. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming on again.
Of course.
We're three years running now. A nice tradition to have you on the channel.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so thanks a lot for coming on. Your links will be down below as usual. And yeah, if you don't know Juna yet, definitely check him out. He's got so much content on his channel, really valuable. And you're consistent as well. You never stop.
No, can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah, for sure. Right, thanks, Juna.
All right, see you, Philip. Bye.